Have you ever wondered why people say one thing but do another? Why a smile can sometimes feel hollow, or why silence in a room can scream louder than words? Human beings are endlessly fascinating, not only for what they reveal, but also for what they carefully conceal. Beneath every conversation, every glance, and every gesture lies a hidden layer of psychology quietly shaping our behavior, our relationships, and even our destiny. This book is about unlocking that hidden world. I invite you to think of this not as a lecture, but as a journey we'll take together. One where stories, insights, and reflections guide you into a deeper awareness of human behavior. You won't need a background in psychology or neuroscience to follow along. All you need is curiosity and the willingness to look not just outward, but also inward. Let me share a story with you. A friend of mine once walked into a job interview for a role he was desperate to land. He had studied the company, rehearsed every possible question, and even practiced his handshake in the mirror. But when he entered the room, something subtle shifted. The hiring manager leaned back in her chair, crossed her arms, and gave only the faintest smile. My friend carried on with confidence, but deep down he sensed resistance. Afterward, he admitted, "I felt like the room was against me from the start, though nothing was ever said." That feeling, the sense that something unspoken is happening beneath the surface, is what this book is about. Most of us are aware of it but don't have the words to explain it. Yet once you begin to understand the psychology behind these moments, you start to see human behavior with new clarity. You realize that every pause, every hesitation, and every choice reveals something important. And that awareness can transform the way you connect, influence, and even protect yourself in daily life. Pause and ask yourself, when was the last time you felt that something unspoken was shaping a conversation or an outcome in your life? Perhaps you felt a sudden distance from a friend who insisted nothing was wrong. Maybe a colleague agreed to a plan but carried out something entirely different. Or maybe, on a brighter note, you trusted someone instantly without knowing why. These are not coincidences. They are the work of the hidden mind, the invisible layer of psychology that whispers beneath every interaction. In this book, we'll explore that hidden world. We'll look at the silent codes of body language, the emotional currents that shape entire rooms, the masks people wear to protect themselves, and the subtle ways influence works without us realizing it. Each chapter will open with a story because stories are the bridge between knowledge and understanding. Then we'll uncover the psychological principles that make sense of that story, explained simply and clearly. Finally, we'll pause for reflection, giving you the chance to connect what you've learned to your own life. Think about this for a moment. The more we understand human behavior, the more compassionate we become. When we see that someone's anger often hides fear, or that a person's arrogance might be a shield for insecurity, we begin to respond differently. Instead of reacting blindly, we pause, we notice, and we choose our response with wisdom. That, in itself, is power. The kind of power that builds healthier relationships and opens doors that brute force never could. This is not just about understanding others, though. It is equally about understanding yourself. Many of us go through life repeating patterns without knowing why, choosing the same kind of partner, falling into the same conflicts, or doubting ourselves in the same ways. The hidden mind isn't only in others, it lives in you too. And when you bring it into the light, when you finally see the invisible strings that have been pulling you, you gain freedom. There is an old saying that knowledge is power, but I believe awareness is transformation. Imagine walking into a room and being able to sense the emotional climate instantly. Imagine recognizing when someone is sincere versus when they are performing. Imagine knowing what drives you, what holds you back, and what truly inspires you to act. This isn't about reading minds, it's about listening more deeply to the signals that are already there. As you listen to these chapters, you'll hear practical examples you can use right away. You'll learn how to notice the micro expressions that flash across a face in less than a second. You'll discover how first impressions are formed and how you can shape them without pretending to be someone you're not. You'll uncover the hidden drivers of conflict and the quiet power of trust. Each step of the way, I'll encourage you to pause, reflect, and connect the ideas to your own story. This book is meant to be experienced, not just heard. So I'll invite you often to stop and think, to imagine, or even to try a small experiment in your daily life. After all, psychology isn't something locked in research papers. It's alive in your family dinner table, your workplace, your friendships, and your late night conversations. The more you practice seeing it, the more fluent you become in the language of human behavior. And let me give you a small encouragement here. Don't worry if you don't catch everything at once. Human psychology is complex, and sometimes the lessons reveal themselves slowly. Just being curious. Just paying attention is enough to begin. With each chapter, you'll sharpen your awareness, layer by layer, until you start noticing things you never saw before. Now, before we move into chapter 1, I want to leave you with a thought. Imagine you are about to enter a crowded room. People are talking, laughing, gesturing. Some faces are warm, others guarded. Without saying a word, you've already read the room, haven't you? You felt something, even before anyone spoke to you. That is the hidden mind at work. And by the end of this journey, you'll not only sense it, you'll understand it. So, settle in. Open your heart and mind. This is your invitation to explore the unseen forces shaping your life. And along the way, remember, share your thoughts in the comments, like this video if it speaks to you, and subscribe for more. Because together, we're not just learning psychology, we're unlocking the hidden mind. There's a moment most of us have experienced, though we rarely talk about it. You're in conversation with someone, and their words say one thing, yet something in their body says another. Their lips are stretched into a smile, but their eyes don't quite follow. Their tone is cheerful, but their shoulders are stiff. You nod politely, but deep down you sense it. Something isn't right. Let me tell you a story. A few years ago, a colleague of mine was introduced to a new business partner. On paper, the man was perfect, charming resume, polished language, and all the right credentials. Yet from the first handshake, something felt off. His grip was too tight, his eye contact slightly forced, his laugh a second too late. Nothing he did was overtly wrong, but the feeling lingered. Months later, when that business deal collapsed under broken promises, my colleague said, "I should have trusted my gut that day." That gut feeling wasn't magic. It was the mind's response to silent signals, the unspoken language of human connection. Psychologists estimate that anywhere from 60 to 80% of communication is nonverbal. That means, astonishingly, that most of what we say never passes through our lips. Our body, face, gestures, and tone of voice carry layers of meaning we may not even be aware of. Consider a child before they learn to speak. Long before words, they cry, reach, turn away, and smile. Their entire survival depends on nonverbal signals. As adults, we never stop sending those signals. We simply become more skilled at hiding them, or at times ignoring them. Think about this for a moment. If someone insists they are calm but their fists are clenched, which do you believe? Words or the body? Most of us, whether consciously or not, trust the body. The body rarely lies. Psychologists call this leakage, when inner feelings escape through micro-expressions, posture shifts, or tone changes, even if someone is trying to conceal them. Imagine anger showing up as a flash of tightened lips, or fear revealed in a half-second widening of the eyes. These signs often vanish in the blink of an eye, but our brains notice them. You've likely had moments when you just knew someone was nervous during a presentation, even though they sounded confident. Or perhaps you sensed a loved one's sadness from the heaviness in their voice, even when they said, "I'm fine." These aren't guesses, they're your brain interpreting signals millions of years of evolution prepared you to read. Pay attention, for example, to posture. Someone leaning slightly toward you is often engaged and open, while someone leaning away may feel discomfort or resistance. Crossed arms can mean defensiveness or simply comfort. It depends on context. A furrowed brow during a meeting might reveal disagreement even before words do. Pause and ask yourself, how often do you actually notice these details when speaking with people in your daily life? Understanding the silent language isn't about becoming a human lie detector. It's about listening more fully to the whole person. not just their words. It deepens connection because when you notice, you can respond with empathy. Imagine sitting with a friend who says everything's fine while their shoulders slump. Instead of taking their words at face value, you lean in gently and say, I hear you saying you're fine, but I can sense you're carrying something. Want to talk? That simple recognition can make someone feel truly seen. On the flip side, ignoring the signals can cost us deeply, whether it's trusting the wrong business partner, misjudging a colleague, or overlooking a loved one's pain. Here's a small challenge for you. Over the next 3 days, practice noticing one nonverbal signal in every conversation you have. Don't overanalyze. Don't judge. Just notice. Is someone's tone slightly different than their words? Do their gestures match their excitement? Does their pace of speech reveal anxiety or confidence? Write it down at the end of the day. You'll be amazed at how quickly your awareness sharpens. Of course, context matters. Nonverbal cues are not universal truths. They're pieces of a puzzle. Crossed arms could mean defensiveness, but it could also mean someone is simply cold. Silence might be agreement, or it might be hesitation. The key is to look for clusters of behavior, not single signs. When 3 or 4 signals point in the same direction, that's when you can trust your interpretation. Pause and ask yourself, when was the last time you trusted words over body language and regretted it later? What did you miss in that moment? And here's another. How do you think others read your body language, even when you don't speak? As we move into the next chapter, I want you to carry this awareness with you. People are always speaking, even in silence. The question is, are you listening? So, the next time you walk into a room, pause. Look around. Notice the posture, the tone, the micro expressions. You're not just observing, you're reading the hidden language that shapes every human connection. And remember, if this resonates with you, share your thoughts in the comments, like this video, and subscribe for more. Because we've only just begun to unlock the hidden mind. Have you ever noticed how much of your life is revealed without you saying a single word? The way you walk into a room, the clothes you choose, the way you hold a coffee cup, or even how you glance at your phone when someone else is talking. All of these small details tell stories about who you are. They may not be the stories you intend to tell, but they are the ones people notice, interpret, and respond to. I remember meeting a young man at a seminar who was clearly brilliant. He had an impressive academic background, and the moment he began to talk, his words reflected a deep knowledge of the subject. Yet before he even opened his mouth, the audience had already formed an impression. He walked onto the stage with his head slightly bowed, shoulders hunched, and his gaze fixed on the floor. To many, it looked like insecurity. Only when he began to speak did they realize the strength of his ideas. But that first impression, the story his body told, was hard to shake. We all carry these unconscious signals. A nervous habit, like tapping a foot or playing with a pen, can tell others we're uneasy. Folding our arms tightly can suggest defensiveness, even when we're simply cold. A genuine smile, one that reaches the eyes, creates warmth, while a forced smile often leaves people questioning our sincerity. Think about this for a moment. How often do you notice someone's words but pay more attention to what their body is saying? Psychologists call this phenomenon behavioral leakage. Even when we carefully control our words, fragments of truth escape through movements, expressions, and habits. It's as if the body is an unedited diary that refuses to hide certain lines. A person insisting they're calm while repeatedly touching their face, or saying they're confident while avoiding eye contact, is telling a hidden story that words alone cannot cover. Pause and ask yourself, what story might your own habits be telling? Do you bite your nails when you're stressed or check your phone when you feel uncomfortable in a conversation? Do you cross your arms in meetings, not out of hostility, but simply as a way to feel grounded? Whether you mean to or not, others are reading these signs and weaving them into their perception of you. The fascinating thing is that we often read these stories without realizing it. Have you ever felt uneasy with someone who seemed too polished, as though their gestures were rehearsed? Or trusted someone almost instantly because their laughter felt natural and unguarded? These are not random reactions. They are your brain decoding silent stories, honed over millennia of evolution where survival often depended on reading others quickly and accurately. There is a power in becoming aware of these signals, not to manipulate them, but to align them with who you really are. When your words and body tell the same story, people feel a sense of authenticity. They believe you. But when there's a gap, when words say one thing and the body whispers another, doubt creeps in. People may not consciously know why, but they feel it. Let me give you a practical exercise. For the next few days, carry a small notebook or use the Notes app on your phone. Write down 3 times when you notice yourself sending a signal without speaking. It could be how you sat during a tense conversation, how you greeted a friend, or even how you reacted when something surprised you. Don't judge yourself, just observe. At the end of those days, look back at your notes and ask, if someone else were watching me, what story would they think I was telling? And then, try flipping the perspective. Pay attention to the people around you. Notice how a coworker sits when they're genuinely engaged versus when they're just waiting for the meeting to end. Observe how your family members smile. Can you tell the difference between their polite smile and their real one? Each moment adds another piece to your understanding of the hidden mind. Of course, we must be careful not to jump to conclusions. One gesture, taken alone, rarely tells the whole story. A person crossing their arms isn't always defensive. A yawn doesn't always mean boredom. It might just mean they didn't sleep well. The key is to look for patterns. When gestures, tone, and expression all line up, the story becomes clear. Pause here and reflect. How many times have you misunderstood someone because you took one signal at face value without looking at the bigger picture? And equally, how often do you think others may have misunderstood you? The stories we tell without speaking are powerful because they shape how people treat us. A leader who enters a room with open posture and calm presence is more likely to inspire confidence. A friend who avoids eye contact may unintentionally create distance even if they feel close. A parent who sighs heavily while saying, "Everything's fine," sends a mixed signal a child will always pick up on. Learning to notice these stories is not about suspicion, it's about connection. It allows us to see beyond words, to sense the truth beneath the surface, and to meet others where they really are. And it allows us to notice ourselves, to ask whether the story we want to tell is truly the one we're sharing. As you walk through your next few days, try this experiment. Slow down and imagine every gesture, every pause, and every look as part of a narrative. Instead of just listening to what people say, ask yourself, what story is their body telling me right now? You'll begin to hear more than words. You'll begin to hear the hidden script of human behavior. And remember, the stories we tell without speaking are not fixed. With awareness, we can shift them. A nervous habit can be replaced with a grounding breath. A defensive posture can soften when we feel safe. And a forced smile can turn genuine when we allow ourselves to be present. So, the next time you find yourself in conversation, pause. Notice your own body, notice theirs, and listen closely. The stories are already being told, whether or not words are spoken. The question is, are you listening? And if this chapter sparked some insights for you, share your reflections in the comments, like this video, and subscribe for more. Because the journey into the hidden mind is only beginning. Chapter 3. The Roots of Human Motivation. Why do people do what they do? It's a question that has echoed through time, puzzling philosophers, scientists, and everyday people alike. You've probably asked yourself the same thing when watching someone make a baffling choice. Why would a student stay up all night gaming when they know they have an exam in the morning? Why would a successful professional walk away from a stable career to pursue something uncertain? Why do we procrastinate, self-sabotage, or sometimes, against all odds, push ourselves beyond every limit? Let me share a story. Years ago, I knew a young woman who seemed to have everything going for her. She worked in a respected company, earned a comfortable salary, and had parents who proudly told everyone about her achievements. Yet one day, she quit her job without another one lined up. Friends whispered, "What is she thinking?" But she smiled with relief, saying, "I couldn't do it anymore. It didn't feel like my life." Within a year, she had started a nonprofit that paid her far less but gave her a sense of meaning she had never known before. From the outside, it looked irrational. From the inside, it made perfect sense. This is the paradox of human motivation. On the surface, we think people are driven by obvious things: money, rewards, recognition. But beneath that, there are deeper roots, often invisible until they are pulled. Psychologists have tried to map these roots. Maslow, for example, described them as a pyramid of needs, starting with the basics of survival food, safety, shelter, and rising toward belonging, esteem, and at the very top, self-actualization. Others, like modern researchers of self-determination theory, have found that three forces often drive us most powerfully: autonomy, the need to feel we have choice; competence, the need to feel capable; and connection, the need to belong. Think about this for a moment. How many of your choices are really about money or recognition, and how many are about something deeper: freedom, growth, or love? That student staying up all night might not be careless at all. Maybe their need for belonging with their friends outweighed their fear of the exam. That professional leaving a stable job might be seeking autonomy, the freedom to shape their own life. Motivation is rarely about the surface. It's about the story underneath. Pause and ask yourself, what drives you most right now? Is it security, the need to feel safe and steady? Is it belonging, the desire to feel close to others? Is it achievement, to prove your worth? Or is it meaning, the pursuit of something bigger than yourself? One reason motivation is so complex is because it shifts depending on where we are in life. A young adult just beginning their career may be motivated by growth and exploration, while someone raising a family might be driven more by stability and safety. Later in life, people often turn toward legacy, the need to contribute to something that lasts beyond them. Our roots don't vanish. They simply rearrange themselves as we grow. You can see this play out in the simplest of daily habits. A person who wakes early every morning to jog may not be motivated by fitness alone. Perhaps they crave discipline because it gives them a sense of control in a chaotic world. Someone who spends hours cooking for their family may not be motivated only by food, but by the joy of nurturing and connecting. Behind every action there is a reason, and behind every reason there is a need. Here's a practical way to uncover those needs. The next time you notice yourself doing something, anything, ask yourself why. Then ask again and again. Usually by the third or fourth why, you'll uncover a truth that surprises you. For example, why am I working so late? Because I want to finish this project. Why? Because I don't want my boss to be disappointed. Why? Because I need to feel valued. That deeper answer is the real root of motivation, not the surface task, but the human need beneath it. Pause here and reflect. What's something you've been doing recently, and what might be the deeper need behind it? Be honest with yourself. Sometimes the truth is uncomfortable, but it is always freeing. Of course, motivation isn't always positive. Sometimes unmet needs push us in directions that hurt us. A person who feels powerless may try to control others. Someone who feels unloved may chase validation through endless achievements. Someone who longs for belonging may accept toxic relationships just to avoid being alone. When we don't see the roots, we mistake weeds for flowers. But once we recognize the real need, we can choose healthier ways to meet it. The good news is that motivation can be reshaped. By paying attention to your deeper needs, you can align your actions with what truly fulfills you. If freedom matters most to you, build space for autonomy in your daily life. If belonging drives you, invest in relationships that nurture you. If growth is your fuel, set challenges that stretch you without breaking you. Motivation isn't about forcing yourself into someone else's idea of success. It's about honoring the hidden needs that guide your energy. Think about a time when you felt completely alive, when you were so engaged in what you were doing that time disappeared. Psychologists call this flow, but more importantly, it's a signal. In that moment, your actions were aligned with your deepest motivation. That's the feeling worth chasing, not just once in a while, but as a compass for your life. As we close this chapter, I invite you to ask yourself a simple but powerful question. What do I truly want, and why? Don't settle for the first answer. Dig deeper. Your hidden mind already knows the truth. It's waiting for you to listen. And if this exploration sparked something in you, share your thoughts in the comments, like this video, and subscribe for more. Because the more we uncover the roots of human motivation, the more we can grow into who we're meant to be. Chapter 4. The Power of First Impressions. They say you never get a second chance to make a first impression. And as much as we'd like to believe people will look past those first few seconds, the truth is that our brains are wired to judge quickly. Within moments of meeting someone, we form opinions about their trustworthiness, competence, and even warmth. These impressions can linger long after words are spoken, often shaping entire relationships before they have truly begun. I once watched this unfold at a networking event. Two men entered the room within minutes of each other. The first walked in with his shoulders slouched, eyes down, and a hesitant smile. The second walked in upright with a relaxed face, steady steps, and an easy nod to the people around him. They hadn't said a single word, yet you could feel the difference. People gravitated toward the second man almost instinctively, while the first had to work harder to start conversations. It wasn't about who they really were, but about the immediate story their presence told. Think about this for a moment. How often have you judged someone before they even spoke? Maybe it was the way they shook your hand, the sound of their voice, or the way they dressed. We like to imagine that we're fair, that we give people time to show who they are, but the hidden mind doesn't wait. It draws quick conclusions, often in less than 10 seconds. Psychologists call this process thin slicing the brain's ability to make rapid judgments with very little information. It's not always accurate, but it is powerful. From an evolutionary perspective, it made sense. Our ancestors didn't have the luxury of long conversations to decide if someone was friend or foe. Quick judgments often meant survival. Today, those instincts remain, influencing how we navigate job interviews, dates, and even chance encounters at the grocery store. Pause and ask yourself, what impression do you think people form when they first meet you? Do they see confidence, warmth, curiosity? Or do they sense hesitation, distance, or distraction? We don't often stop to consider this, yet it shapes the opportunities and relationships that come our way. Of course, first impressions are not set in stone, but they are sticky. Research shows that once we've formed an initial opinion of someone, we tend to filter new information through that lens. If we believe someone is kind, we interpret their actions in a favorable way. If we suspect arrogance, the same action may confirm our bias. In other words, first impressions can act like glue, holding our perception in place long after reality has offered more data. Here's the encouraging part. You can shape the impression you give without being fake. Authenticity and awareness are the keys. A genuine smile, steady eye contact, and an open posture often speak louder than rehearsed words. Think of it less as a performance and more as alignment. Letting your presence reflect your best intentions. I remember a student who once told me she dreaded interviews because she felt people never saw her true self. She was warm, intelligent, and full of energy in her personal life, but in formal settings she grew stiff and anxious. Together we practiced something simple, grounding herself with a deep breath before entering the room, reminding herself to focus on connection rather than perfection, and allowing her natural smile to surface. At her next interview, she said, "I didn't try to be impressive, I just tried to be present." She got the job. Pause here and reflect. When was the last time you walked into a new situation? A meeting, a party, an introduction? And what silent story did your body tell? Were you closed off or open, rushed or calm, guarded or engaged? It's worth remembering that first impressions work both ways. Just as people judge us, we judge them, and sometimes we get it wrong. How many times have you disliked someone at first, only to discover later that they were kind, reliable, even inspiring? Our quick judgments can protect us, but they can also limit us if we hold too tightly to them. Being aware of this bias allows us to keep an open mind, to give others the grace we wish for ourselves. Here's a small practice you can try. The next time you meet someone new, notice your immediate impression. Then make a conscious choice to stay curious. Instead of locking in your judgment, ask yourself, what else might be true about this person? You'll be surprised at how often a second impression tells a richer story than the first. And on the other side, experiment with your own presence. Before entering a room, pause for a single breath. Straighten your posture. Let your face relax. Remind yourself that people want to connect, not critique. These small adjustments can shift the impression you make, not by changing who you are, but by allowing more of your authentic self to be seen. First impressions are powerful, but they are not destiny. They are simply the starting point of a longer conversation, a door that opens, or sometimes one that stays closed. By becoming more aware of how we show up and more mindful of how quickly we judge, we learn to navigate those first moments with wisdom and grace. As we move forward, remember this. People are always forming impressions whether you notice it or not. The way you walk, the way you greet, even the way you listen, these are all part of the story you tell before words ever begin. The question is, what story do you want to tell? And if this chapter sparked something for you, share your thoughts in the comments, like this video, and subscribe for more. Because understanding first impressions is just one step in unlocking the hidden mind. Chapter 5. Emotional Echoes. How Feelings Shape Behavior. Emotions are contagious. You've felt it before. Walking into a room where people are laughing and suddenly you feel lighter, even if you don't know the joke. Or stepping into a tense meeting and before a single word is spoken, your shoulders tighten and your breath becomes shallow. Feelings ripple outward, bouncing from one person to another like echoes in a canyon. We may think our emotions are private, but in truth, they are constantly shaping the world around us. I remember visiting a friend who had just lost his job. He tried to mask his disappointment with polite words, insisting that he was fine. But the heaviness in his tone and the slump of his posture told a different story. Within minutes, I felt that same heaviness pressing on me. We sat together in silence, and I realized I wasn't simply observing his sadness. I was sharing it. His feelings had echoed into me. Psychologists call this emotional contagion, the invisible way we absorb and mirror the moods of others. Our brains are equipped with what scientists call mirror neurons, cells that light up when we see someone else express an emotion, as if we ourselves were experiencing it. This is why yawns spread across a room, why laughter multiplies, and why one person's stress can infect an entire household. Pause and think about this for a moment. Who in your life has the power to shift your mood without even trying? Perhaps it's a friend whose joy is infectious, or a colleague whose constant frustration weighs on everyone nearby. And now turn the mirror inward. Whose emotions are you echoing to others without realizing it? The influence of emotions doesn't stop at mood, it shapes behavior too. A manager who enters the office radiating calm can steady an entire team, while one who storms in with anger can derail productivity in minutes. A parent's anxiety can quietly train a child to see the world as dangerous, while a parent's optimism can help them view challenges as adventures. Our feelings don't stay in us. They spread, weaving themselves into the choices and actions of those around us. I once coached a group preparing for a high-stakes presentation. At the start, the room buzzed with nervous energy, fast talking, restless gestures, shallow breathing. Then, one member of the team, an older woman, sat quietly, smiled, and began speaking slowly and warmly. The others unconsciously matched her pace. Within 10 minutes, the tension dissolved, replaced with a sense of steady confidence. She hadn't told anyone to calm down, she had simply modeled calm, and the others followed. That is the power of emotional echoes. Pause here and ask yourself, when you walk into a room, what emotional echo do you leave behind? Do people feel lighter, calmer, and more open? Or do they feel heavier, more tense, more guarded? This reflection is not about blame, it's about awareness. Once you notice, you gain the power to choose the echo you want to create. Of course, we can't control emotions like flipping a switch. Life will bring frustration, sadness, even anger. But we can choose how we carry those feelings and whether we let them ripple outward unchecked. Sometimes pausing to take a breath before speaking is enough to change the tone of an entire conversation. Sometimes choosing to smile even when tired sets off a chain reaction that makes the day lighter for everyone you meet. There's also the other side, protecting ourselves from negative echoes. We all know people who seem to drain the energy from a room. Being aware of this allows you to set boundaries, to recognize, this isn't my feeling, it's theirs. By noticing, you create space between their echo and your response. Here's a small practice you can try. The next time you notice a strong emotion in someone else, pause before reacting. Ask yourself, am I feeling this because it's mine or because I'm absorbing theirs? This simple question can help you navigate relationships with more clarity and choice. And just as importantly, consider how you can use your own emotions as a gift. If kindness spreads, why not let yours be the spark? If calmness steadies, why not be the anchor? You don't need grand gestures to shift the emotional climate around you. Often it's the quiet presence, the listening ear, the steady smile that changes everything. Emotions are not just private experiences. They are shared energies that ripple through families, workplaces, and communities. When we begin to see them this way, we realize that every choice we make about how we show up emotionally matters. We are not just carrying feelings, we are broadcasting them. As we move forward, remember this. Every moment you share with others leaves an imprint. Your joy, your frustration, your calm, your worry, they don't stay with you alone. They echo outward, shaping how others feel and how they act. The question is not whether you will leave an emotional echo, but what kind of echo you want it to be. And if this reflection resonates with you, share your thoughts in the comments, like this video, and subscribe for more. Because understanding how feelings ripple through us and into others is a vital step in unlocking the hidden mind. Chapter 6. The Shadows of Personality. Every one of us carries traits that shine like light and others that linger quietly in the shadows. Personality is often described as our psychological fingerprint, unique, consistent, and revealing. But just like fingerprints, it can be both obvious and hidden. What people see in us is only part of the story. Beneath that, there are qualities that drive our choices, sometimes helping us, sometimes holding us back. I once knew two people who shared the same trait: strong determination. One used it to build a thriving business, refusing to give up despite setbacks. The other used it to cling stubbornly to failing ideas, unable to let go even when it caused harm. The same trait, expressed differently, led to opposite outcomes. This is the paradox of personality. What empowers us in one context can undermine us in another. Psychologists often speak of the big five personality traits: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Each exists on a spectrum. Too little, and we may seem rigid, careless, or detached. Too much, and we may become scattered, perfectionistic, or overly sensitive. Most of us live somewhere in the middle, yet our tendencies shape how we move through the world. Think about openness. People high in this trait are curious, imaginative, and eager for new experiences. That curiosity can lead to creativity, innovation, and growth. But it can also lead to restlessness, a constant search for the next new thing, leaving projects unfinished. Conscientiousness. The trait of discipline and organization can create reliability and achievement. But when taken too far, it can slip into rigidity or an obsession with control. Extroversion can make someone lively and engaging, but it can also overwhelm quieter voices. Agreeableness brings kindness and cooperation, but at its extreme, it may become self-sacrifice, leaving a person unable to set boundaries. And neuroticism, though often cast in a negative light, carries its own gifts. It makes us vigilant, sensitive, attuned to danger. Yet too much of it can leave us anxious, restless, always waiting for the worst. Pause here and ask yourself, which of these traits feels strongest in you? And more importantly, when has it served you and when has it hindered you? It's easy to think of personality as fixed, but research shows it is more flexible than we once believed. Our traits may not transform completely, yet we can learn to soften them, balance them, or harness them differently. A highly agreeable person can practice saying no. An anxious person can channel their sensitivity into preparation instead of worry. A restless spirit can learn the discipline of finishing what they start. The shadows don't have to trap us, they can teach us. I recall a student who was painfully introverted. In group discussions, he rarely spoke, convinced his voice didn't matter. Yet when he did share, his words were thoughtful and profound. I told him, "Your strength isn't in saying a lot, but in saying what matters." Slowly, he began to see his introversion not as a flaw, but as a different kind of gift. He didn't need to become the loudest voice in the room. He simply needed to trust the value of his own. Pause and think about this for a moment. What aspect of yourself have you always seen as a weakness? Could it be, in the right context, a strength? Could your sensitivity be empathy? Could your stubbornness be persistence? Could your quietness be depth? The shadows of personality are not enemies to be fought. They are parts of ourselves asking to be understood. When we deny them, they tend to control us from the dark. When we bring them into the light, they become part of our wholeness. The key is not to erase who we are, but to recognize that every trait carries two sides, and wisdom is learning to choose which side to lean into. Of course, personality also shapes how we connect with others. Some traits complement, others clash. A highly conscientious person may find freedom with a more spontaneous partner or frustration, depending on how each responds. An extrovert may bring life to a gathering, while an introvert may bring depth to the conversation. Neither is better, both are needed. Recognizing the balance helps us appreciate others rather than judge them. Imagine for a moment if we all saw personality not as boxes to trap people in, but as a landscape, full of peaks and valleys. Some parts of the terrain are easy to walk, others are rough and uneven. But every landscape has beauty, and every path has value when we understand it. So pause and reflect. What trait in yourself have you underappreciated? What trait in someone else have you judged too quickly? How might your relationships shift if you saw traits not as good or bad, but as light and shadow, each with its own role to play? As we close this chapter, remember that personality is not destiny. It is a starting point. The way you use your traits, the way you balance your shadows and light, is what defines your path. You are not fixed in stone. You are a living, breathing story, unfolding with every choice. And if this reflection opened something for you, share your thoughts in the comments. Like this video, and subscribe for more. Because the more we learn to embrace the shadows of personality, the more we step into the fullness of the hidden mind. Chapter 7. Influence without force. Influence is one of those words that can make people uneasy. It often brings to mind images of manipulation, persuasion tricks, or someone trying to bend others to their will. But true influence, the kind that lasts, isn't about force or control. It's about connection. It's about aligning with people's values, creating trust, and planting ideas that inspire rather than demand. I once met a teacher who embodied this kind of influence. She never raised her voice, never tried to intimidate her students, and yet the moment she entered the classroom, everyone paid attention. Her presence was calm, her tone steady, her eyes attentive. She made each student feel seen. When she suggested a new way of thinking, it didn't feel like an order, it felt like an invitation. Years later, her students still spoke about how she changed the way they saw themselves. That is influence without force. Psychologists have long studied what makes people say yes, not just with their minds, but with their hearts. They've found patterns. People are more likely to be influenced when they feel a sense of trust, when they recognize genuine authority, when they sense belonging, or when they feel reciprocity. A natural desire to give back when someone has given to them. But beyond theories, what matters most is authenticity. Influence that is forced crumbles quickly. Influence that is genuine endures. Pause and ask yourself, who has influenced your life most deeply? Was it someone with power over you, or someone who quietly inspired you by how they lived? Chances are it was the latter. One of the simplest ways to influence without force is through listening. When people feel heard, they open. They lower their defenses. A conversation becomes a collaboration, not a competition. Imagine a manager who tells their team exactly what to do, leaving no room for dialogue. The work might get done, but rarely with passion. Now imagine a manager who asks, "What do you think would work best?" and then truly listens. That manager hasn't given up influence, they've deepened it. Another way influence takes root is through consistency. People trust what they see repeated over time. A friend who shows up again and again, even in small ways, has more influence than someone who makes grand promises but disappears. Influence is not a single moment of persuasion. It is the steady weaving of trust over many interactions. Think about the people you follow or admire online, in books or in your community. What draws you to them? Often it's not their arguments or their logic alone, it's their consistency. They live the message they speak. Influence flows most strongly when words and actions align. But there's a subtle danger here too. Influence can be used to uplift or to exploit. History is filled with examples of people who captured attention, inspired trust, and then led others into harm. That is why awareness is essential. We must ask not just, who influences me, but also, where is that influence leading? Influence without force is powerful, but it requires responsibility. Pause for a moment and reflect. What kind of influence do you want to have on the people around you? When they walk away from a conversation with you, what do you hope lingers? Is it pressure or is it inspiration? Is it fear or is it trust? Every interaction leaves a trace. Every word plants a seed. One practical way to build gentle influence is to focus less on convincing and more on connecting. Instead of pushing someone toward your idea, ask about theirs. Instead of telling them what they should do, share your own experience. People rarely change because they are told to. They change because they feel understood. Let me share another story. A father once told me about his teenage son who refused to study. Every night ended in shouting matches, the father demanding, the son resisting. Finally, one evening, exhausted, the father tried something different. He sat down and said, "I know you don't want to study. Can you tell me what you do want?" The son was surprised, even suspicious at first, but slowly he admitted he wanted to be an artist. From that night on, their conversations changed. Instead of fighting over homework, they began to talk about how discipline could support creativity. The boy still studied, but now it wasn't about obedience. It was about his own dream. Influence had shifted from force to alignment. Pause here and ask yourself, where in your life are you trying to push someone? What might happen if, instead of pushing, you listened, connected, and looked for alignment? Influence without force is not about winning arguments. It's about planting seeds. Sometimes those seeds don't grow immediately, but later, when the soil is ready, they sprout. You may never know the full impact of your presence or your words, but others carry them long after the moment has passed. As we close this chapter, remember that your influence is not measured by how loudly you speak, but by how deeply you connect. True influence leaves people feeling stronger, not smaller. It opens doors instead of closing them. It inspires rather than demands. So the next time you find yourself in a position to guide, to teach, or to persuade, pause. Ask yourself, am I forcing or am I inviting? The difference is everything. And if this chapter gave you something to reflect on, share your thoughts in the comments, like this video, and subscribe for more. Because influence without force is one of the quiet keys to unlocking the hidden mind. Chapter 8. The Masks We Wear. Every person you meet is wearing a mask. Not the kind you can buy in a store, but the invisible masks of self-presentation faces we put on to be accepted, respected, or protected. Sometimes these masks help us, allowing us to play roles that smooth social life. Other times they become heavy, hiding our true selves even from the people we love most. I once spoke with a woman who was admired by everyone at her workplace. She was confident, charismatic, and seemed to glide effortlessly through each meeting. Yet when we sat down privately, she admitted something that startled me. Every day, she said, I feel like I'm performing. They think I'm strong, but inside I'm exhausted. I don't know if anyone actually knows me. Her mask had become so convincing that even she no longer knew where it ended and where her real self began. Think about this for a moment. Don't we all play different roles depending on where we are? At work, perhaps you're the responsible professional. With friends, you might be the joker. With family, the dutiful son or daughter. None of these roles are lies, they're parts of us. But when a role becomes the only face we show, the mask can blur into identity, and we risk losing touch with who we really are. The sociologist Irving Goffman described life as a stage. We all have a front stage where we perform for the audience, and a backstage where we can finally rest and be unguarded. The problem is that some people never find their way off stage. They live so long behind their mask that they forget how it feels to be without one. Pause here and reflect. What mask do you wear most often? And who in your life has ever seen you without it? Masks aren't inherently bad. They can protect us in vulnerable moments. A teacher might wear the mask of authority to keep order in a classroom. A doctor might wear the mask of calm when delivering difficult news. These masks serve a purpose, but the danger lies in mistaking the mask for the self and in never allowing others to glimpse what's underneath. I remember a young man who always presented himself as the life of the party, loud, funny, unstoppable. Yet one night, after most people had left, he confessed he often felt lonely and unseen. His humor was a mask, shielding him from rejection. When I asked him what he feared most about removing it, he said, "If I stop being the funny one, I don't know if anyone will stay." His laughter had been a shield, but also a prison. Pause and ask yourself, what do you fear would happen if you dropped your mask even for a moment? Would people turn away, or would they finally see the depth you've been hiding? The truth is, masks can never fully protect us. People sense when something doesn't quite match, when words and presence feel slightly out of sync. Sometimes, the moments that connect us most deeply are not when we're polished, but when we're raw. Vulnerability, though scary, is often the bridge to intimacy. So, how do we live with masks wisely? The answer is not to throw them all away, but to wear them consciously. To know when a role is useful and when it has overstayed its welcome. To allow trusted people into our backstage where the masks come off and the truth can breathe. Here's a practice you might try. Choose one person you trust, and for one conversation, decide not to perform. Don't be the strong one, the cheerful one, the agreeable one. Just be the honest one. See how it feels. Notice their reaction. Often the fear of being unmasked is greater than the reality. And here's the deeper question. How often do you allow yourself to be backstage, even when you're alone? Many people are so accustomed to performance that even in solitude they critique themselves, rehearse conversations, and wear invisible masks. But solitude is the one place where you can gently set them aside and rediscover your real face. As we move forward, remember this. Masks are part of life, but they are not your life. They are tools, not identities. The self beneath the mask is where your deepest connections and your truest strength reside. So pause and reflect now. Who are you when no one is watching? And who might you become if you dare to let that self step into the light a little more often? And if this chapter spoke to you, share your reflections in the comments. Like this video and subscribe for more. Because learning to balance the masks we wear is another step in unlocking the hidden mind. Chapter 9. The Fragile Bridge of Trust. Trust is like a bridge. It takes time to build. It requires care to maintain, and it can be destroyed in an instant. Once broken, it is never quite the same, even if repaired. We may walk across it again, but the cracks remain, whispering of the moment it fell. I once knew a man who confided in his closest friend about a painful struggle. He spoke with hesitation, his voice trembling, because sharing that truth felt risky. Days later, he discovered that his friend had shared the story casually with others. It was not told with malice, but the damage was done. The bridge had collapsed. From that day on, the man kept parts of himself hidden, even from people who deserved his trust. That is the fragile power of trust when it breaks. The echoes reach far beyond the moment itself. Think about this for a moment. Who in your life do you trust without hesitation? And who do you hold back from, measuring each word carefully? Those decisions, often invisible, shape the depth of our relationships. Trust determines whether we lean in or hold back, whether we open our hearts or keep them guarded. Psychologists describe trust as the foundation of all healthy human connection. Without it, intimacy withers, cooperation falters, and even love struggles to survive. At its core, trust is built on three things: reliability, honesty, and care. We trust those who do what they say they will do. We trust those who tell us the truth, even when it is hard. And we trust those who show us they care, not just once, but consistently. Pause and ask yourself, how reliable am I to the people who count on me? How honest am I when the truth feels uncomfortable? How consistent is my care for those I love? Trust is not an abstract idea. It is lived out in small choices every day. Sometimes trust is tested not by grand betrayals, but by tiny fractures. A friend who shows up late again and again. A colleague who takes credit for someone else's work. A partner who promises to listen but seems distracted. Each moment may seem small, but like raindrops on stone, they wear away the surface until the bridge grows thin. And yet, when trust is nurtured, it becomes one of the strongest forces in human life. Think of a child who runs into a parent's arms, confident they will be caught. Think of a patient who surrenders to surgery, trusting the hands of a surgeon they barely know. Think of a community that rallies around someone in crisis, proving that support is real. These moments remind us that trust, when honored, can hold incredible weight. Of course, trust is not blind. Sometimes the most powerful act of self-respect is choosing not to trust someone who has shown they cannot be trusted. Forgiveness and trust are not the same thing. You can forgive someone and still choose not to walk across that fragile bridge again. But here is the paradox. Even though trust can be broken, we continue to seek it. We are wired for connection, and connection cannot survive without trust. This means we must risk it, again and again, even knowing the danger. To live without trust is to live in isolation. To trust wisely is to live fully. Pause here and reflect. Who in your life has earned your trust most deeply? What did they do to show you they could be counted on? And on the other side, whose trust do you hold? What small actions can you take to strengthen that fragile bridge? Let me offer a simple practice. In your closest relationships, try to be transparent in small ways. Follow through on promises, no matter how minor. Admit mistakes instead of covering them up. Express appreciation when others keep their word. These are bricks and beams, strengthening the bridge each day. And when trust does falter, address it. Silence only widens the cracks. Honest conversations, though uncomfortable, are the first steps toward repair. The bridge may never look the same, but with time and care, it can once again hold weight. As we close this chapter, remember this. Trust is not built in grand gestures, but in quiet consistencies. It is the fragile bridge on which love, friendship, and community all depend. Guard it, nurture it, and walk across it with care. And if these words stirred something in you, share your thoughts in the comments, like this video, and subscribe for more. Because learning to build and honor trust is one of the most essential steps in unlocking the hidden mind. Chapter 10. The Unspoken Rules of Power. Power is everywhere, though we rarely name it. It lives in workplaces, families, friendships, even in the smallest interactions. Who speaks first and who waits? Who interrupts and who stays silent? Who gets the bigger share of attention and who quietly fades into the background? Power does not always shout it off in whispers, shaping behavior in ways we barely notice. I once sat in a boardroom where two men entered at the same time. One placed his jacket neatly on the back of his chair and leaned forward with his arms open. The other sat at the far end, arms crossed, his chair angled slightly away. No titles had been announced, no introductions made, but within minutes, everyone seemed to defer to the first man. They laughed at his comments, nodded when he spoke, and waited for his reactions before offering their own. Nothing explicit had been said, yet the rules of power had been established. Think about this for a moment. Have you ever entered a room and instantly felt who held the most influence, even before hearing their title? Our brains are wired to sense hierarchy, to notice subtle cues that reveal status and dominance. It is an ancient instinct, born in tribes and carried into modern life. Power at its core is not just about position, it is about perception. A person may have a high title but no real influence if others do not respect them. Another may hold no official authority yet guide every decision through quiet confidence. Power is both visible and invisible, shaped by gestures, tone, timing, and presence. Psychologists and anthropologists tell us that power dynamics are rooted in survival. In early human groups, those who could lead effectively, who could protect and provide, were granted authority. Those who failed lost it. Today, the same principle applies, though the battlefield has shifted from hunting grounds to boardrooms, from caves to classrooms. Pause here and reflect. What role do you usually play in groups? Are you the one others turn to for decisions, or the one who quietly observes? Do you seek power, resist it, or avoid it altogether? The unspoken rules of power reveal themselves in countless ways. The person who controls the agenda controls the conversation. The one who asks questions often holds more influence than the one who answers. Silence, when used intentionally, can carry more weight than words. Even physical space matters: who sits at the head of the table, who takes the corner seat, who stands versus who remains seated. Each choice communicates something about status, but power is not inherently good or bad. It is neutral. What matters is how it is used. When wielded with care, power becomes leadership. It inspires, protects, and creates possibilities. When abused, power becomes domination. It silences, diminishes, and destroys trust. Pause and ask yourself, who in your life uses their power to uplift others? And who uses it to control? How does that difference affect the way you feel around them? I remember a teacher from my childhood who held immense power in the classroom. She could have used it to intimidate, to demand obedience. Instead, she used it to encourage. When students faltered, she leaned in and reminded them of their potential. When conflicts arose, she mediated with fairness rather than force. Her power was undeniable, but it was also generous. To this day, her influence lingers because she chose to use authority as a tool for growth. On the other hand, I've seen power wielded like a weapon: a manager who belittled employees in meetings, using fear to maintain control. At first it worked. People complied quickly, but over time creativity withered, trust evaporated, and eventually the best workers left. That is the hidden cost of abusive power. It can achieve compliance, but never true commitment. Here's a thought to carry with you. True power does not come from forcing others down. It comes from lifting others up. When people feel stronger in your presence, your influence grows. When they feel smaller, your power may appear strong, but it is brittle, destined to crack. A practical exercise you can try is this. In your next group setting, notice who speaks, who listens, and who holds the subtle reins of direction. Then ask yourself, how can I use my presence not to dominate, but to create space for others? Sometimes the most powerful act is to give power away, to amplify the voices that would otherwise remain unheard. As we close this chapter, remember, power is not only in titles or positions. It lives in tone, in timing, in presence, in trust. It is always at play, even in silence. The unspoken rules of power guide us whether we acknowledge them or not. The real question is, how will you choose to use the power you already hold? And if this reflection gave you something to consider, share your thoughts in the comments, like this video, and subscribe for more. Because understanding the unspoken rules of power is another step in unlocking the hidden mind. Chapter 11, The Social Mirror. Have you ever noticed how much of who you are is reflected back to you by the people around you? We often think of identity as something fixed inside us, but in reality, much of our sense of self is shaped in the mirror of others' eyes. From childhood to adulthood, we learn who we are not only by looking inward, but by noticing how others respond to us. The smiles, the frowns, the encouragement, the criticism, all of it builds the story we carry about ourselves. I once met a man who had been told since childhood that he was the quiet one. Every family gathering, every classroom, every friendship group reinforced that label. He doesn't talk much, people would say, even when he wanted to. Over time, he began to believe it, and eventually he stopped trying to speak up at all. But in private conversations, when someone gave him space, he was thoughtful, articulate, and even passionate. His self-concept wasn't built from his true voice. It was built from the reflection he saw in others. Think about this for a moment. What words have others used to describe you throughout your life? Smart, funny, difficult, shy, leader. Did those labels shape the way you saw yourself? Did they become self-fulfilling, guiding the way you acted? Psychologists call this the looking glass self. We see ourselves not just as we are, but as we believe others see us. When we sense approval, we grow in confidence. When we sense rejection, we shrink, sometimes even before anyone speaks. The social mirror is powerful because it doesn't simply reflect, it molds. Pause here and ask yourself, whose reflection are you carrying? And is it really you or just the story someone else wrote on your life? The social mirror can be both a gift and a trap. A teacher who sees potential in a struggling student and says, "I believe in you," can transform that student's future. The child begins to see themselves through that mirror, and suddenly new possibilities emerge. But the reverse is also true. A careless remark, "You're not good at this, you'll never succeed," can linger for years, echoing louder than the person who first said it ever intended. I remember a young woman who dreamed of becoming a writer. In high school, the teacher once told her, "This isn't very good. Maybe writing isn't for you." She carried those words like a scar. For years, she avoided writing, convinced she wasn't capable. Only later, with encouragement from a mentor who recognized her talent, did she dare to try again. Today, she is published, yet she still admits that sometimes, late at night, she hears that old voice. That is the lasting weight of the social mirror. But here's the truth. Mirrors can be wrong. Just because someone reflects something back to you doesn't mean it's the full picture. People reflect their own biases, their own insecurities, even their own limitations. If a mirror shows you distortion, it doesn't mean you're distorted. It means the mirror is cracked. Pause for a moment and consider, what reflections from others have you accepted without question? And which of those might you need to gently lay down? The challenge and the freedom lies in learning to choose your mirrors. Surround yourself with people who reflect your best self back to you, not with flattery, but with truth and encouragement. Seek out those who remind you not just of who you are, but of who you could become. When you stand in front of those mirrors, you don't just see yourself, you see your potential. And don't forget, you are also a mirror. The way you respond to others shapes how they see themselves. A single word of kindness, a gesture of belief, can echo far longer than you realize. You may not remember every encouragement you've given, but someone else may carry it as a turning point in their life. So pause and ask, what reflection do people see when they stand before me? Do they walk away feeling smaller, or do they walk away standing taller? As we close this chapter, remember that while we cannot control every mirror in our lives, we can choose which ones to trust. We can question old reflections that no longer serve us, and we can become mirrors of truth and kindness for others. The hidden mind learns not only from within, but from what is reflected back from the outside. To know yourself deeply, you must ask, am I looking into a clear mirror or a distorted one? The answer may change the story you tell about who you are, and if this reflection stirred something in you, share your thoughts in the comments, like this video, and subscribe for more. Because learning to see clearly in the social mirror is one more step in unlocking the hidden mind. Chapter 12. When Minds Collide. Conflict Psychology. Conflict is one of the most human of experiences. No matter how much we try to avoid it, sooner or later our minds collide with someone else's. Different needs, different values, different expectations. Sometimes conflict is loud and fiery, sometimes it's quiet and cold, but beneath it lies the same truth. Two or more realities clashing in the same space. I once watched a family argument unfold at a dinner table. What began as a simple discussion about chores quickly turned into raised voices, accusations, and tears. On the surface, it was about who hadn't done the dishes, but if you listened closely, it was really about something deeper. One person felt unappreciated, another felt controlled, another felt invisible. The dishes were just the spark, the fire came from unmet needs colliding. Think about this for a moment. How many of your own conflicts have really been about the surface issue, and how many were about something beneath it: respect, recognition, safety, love? Psychologists explain that conflict often escalates because our brains interpret disagreement as threat. When someone challenges us, our body reacts as though we're in danger. Heart racing, muscles tense, voice sharp. The fight or flight system switches on, even though the enemy is often someone we care about. What makes this so challenging is that once our bodies are in survival mode, we stop listening. Instead of seeking understanding, we defend. Instead of bridging, we attack or retreat. Pause here and reflect. Can you remember the last time you were in conflict and felt your body tense before your mind even caught up? That is the hidden mind at work, trying to protect you, but sometimes making peace harder to find. The truth is, conflict itself isn't the enemy. Avoiding it at all costs can be just as damaging as fighting too often. Healthy conflict, handled with awareness, can actually deepen relationships. It clears the air, brings hidden truths to the surface, and allows growth. But for that to happen, we must learn to shift from threat to curiosity. Instead of asking, "How do I win this?" we must ask, "What is really going on here? What need is being protected? What fear is being expressed?" I once worked with a small team whose meetings always ended in tension. Every decision became a tug of war. Finally, instead of pushing through the agenda, I asked each member to share what mattered most to them personally about the project. What emerged was eye-opening. One person craved recognition, another wanted stability, another feared failure. None of them were really fighting over the project, they were fighting for their own needs. Once that was clear, the atmosphere changed. The conflict wasn't solved overnight, but for the first time, they could see each other as humans, not opponents. Here's a practice you can try the next time conflict arises. Pause before reacting. Breathe and ask yourself, what is this really about for me and for them? Often, naming the deeper need softens the clash. Instead of, "You never listen to me," try, "I need to feel heard." Instead of, "You're always late," try, "When you're late, I feel unimportant." Shifting from blame to need turns conflict from a battle into a conversation. Of course, not every conflict can be resolved neatly. Some differences are too deep, some wounds too raw, but even then, approaching with awareness changes the outcome. You may not find agreement, but you may find respect. You may not leave as friends, but you may leave with dignity. Pause and ask yourself now, what conflict in your life is asking not for more arguments, but for deeper understanding? And what would it mean to approach it with curiosity instead of defense? Conflict is part of being human. It is the place where our hidden minds bump into each other, sometimes painfully, sometimes productively. When we see it not as a failure, but as an opportunity to uncover deeper truths, conflict transforms from something to fear into something to learn from. As we close this chapter, remember, when minds collide, you have a choice. You can fight to win, or you can listen to understand. You can let the bridge burn, or you can build a stronger one from the ashes. And if this reflection resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments, like this video, and subscribe for more. Because learning to navigate conflict with wisdom is yet another step in unlocking the hidden mind. Chapter 13. The Hidden Mind of Groups. Something fascinating happens when people come together. Alone, we each think, feel, and act as individuals. But in groups, a hidden mind emerges, a collective energy that can lift us higher than we ever thought possible, or pull us into choices we would never make on our own. It is as if the group itself becomes a living organism, with moods, impulses, and decisions that belong to no one person yet influence everyone. I once attended a concert in a massive stadium. Tens of thousands of people sang the same lyrics, moving to the same rhythm. In that moment, individuality dissolved. Strangers who had never met felt united, as though they were one voice, one body. People hugged, laughed, and cried with those they didn't know. It was powerful, almost transcendent. Yet that same force that binds can also blind. In another context, a crowd can just as easily erupt into anger, violence, or panic. The hidden mind of groups is powerful precisely because it is contagious. Think about this for a moment. Have you ever done something in a group that you would never have done alone? Maybe you joined in laughter at a joke that wasn't truly funny. Maybe you stayed silent when you knew you should speak. Maybe you went along with a decision you disagreed with because everyone else seemed certain. That is the group mind at work, subtle, persuasive, and often invisible until afterward. Psychologists have studied this phenomenon for decades. They've found that in groups, responsibility tends to diffuse. When something goes wrong, no one feels entirely accountable. People also tend to conform, aligning their behavior with what they perceive to be the norm. Sometimes this conformity keeps harmony. Other times it suppresses truth. The hidden mind of groups thrives on unity, but that unity can come at a cost. Pause here and reflect. In which situations do you find yourself swept along by group energy? And in which moments do you resist and hold to your own voice? The influence of groups is not only about pressure, it is also about safety. Belonging to a group once meant survival. Our ancestors needed tribes to protect them, to hunt, to care for children. To be cast out meant danger. That instinct still lingers today. We seek belonging in families, communities, workplaces, even online spaces. And sometimes in our longing to belong, we trade parts of ourselves to keep our place in the group. But there is another side, a brighter one. Groups can elevate us to heights we could never reach alone. A supportive team can draw out hidden talents. A community rallying together can overcome crises. A movement built on shared values can change the course of history. The same collective force that can drag us down can also lift us higher. I remember a young man who struggled with addiction. Alone, he failed again and again. But when he joined a recovery group, everything shifted. Surrounded by people who understood his struggle, who reflected his potential back to him, he found strength he didn't know he had. The group mind, in this case, didn't erase him, it restored him. Pause and ask yourself, which groups in your life lift you up and which quietly pull you down? Which ones bring out your best and which nudge you toward choices you regret? The hidden mind of groups is powerful, but you have the power to choose which groups shape you. Here's a simple practice. Over the next week, notice the groups you are part of, your workplace team, your circle of friends, your family gatherings. Ask yourself, what is the emotional climate here? Do I feel freer, stronger, more authentic? Or do I feel smaller, quieter, less myself? Awareness of the group's hidden mind is the first step to navigating it wisely. As we close this chapter, remember this. The mind of a group is not always rational, but it is always real. It can carry you forward or sweep you away. The question is, will you drift unconsciously with the current, or will you choose your place in the tide? And if this chapter gave you something to think about, share your reflections in the comments, like this video, and subscribe for more. Because learning to understand the hidden mind of groups is another key to unlocking the hidden mind within us all. Chapter 14. The Lies We Tell Ourselves. Of all the stories we encounter in life, perhaps the most powerful are the ones we tell ourselves. Some of these stories are empowering, guiding us with courage and clarity. Others are quieter, more deceptive little lies whispered inside our minds, shaping our choices without us even noticing. These lies are not always malicious. Often they are shields protecting us from pain or from truths we are not ready to face. But over time, they can keep us trapped, living in illusions instead of possibilities. I once spoke with a man who stayed in a job he despised for nearly 2 decades. Every time the thought of leaving crossed his mind, he told himself, "It's too late for me to start over." At first, this lie brought him comfort. It explained his inaction and soothed his fear of change. But as the years went by, the weight of that story became unbearable. One day, in a rare moment of honesty, he admitted, "The truth isn't that it's too late. The truth is, I'm scared." In that moment, he saw the difference between the lie that kept him safe and the truth that could set him free. Think about this for a moment. What story do you repeat to yourself when you're afraid to take a step forward? I'm not good enough. I don't have time. It's just who I am. These phrases may feel like facts, but often they are disguises protecting us from vulnerability. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance, the tension between what we know deep down and what we allow ourselves to admit. To reduce the discomfort, we tell ourselves stories that make our choices feel reasonable. A person who smokes might say, "It relaxes me," ignoring the health risks. Someone who avoids pursuing their dream might say, "It's not practical," when really they fear failure. These lies smooth over the cracks in our courage, but they also limit our growth. Pause here and reflect. What is one story you've been telling yourself that might not be entirely true? What fear or need might it be protecting? The lies we tell ourselves are not always negative. Sometimes they are survival tools. A child in a chaotic home may tell themselves, "It's not so bad," because believing otherwise would be unbearable. A person recovering from heartbreak may say, "I never really cared," to numb the pain. These stories may serve us in the moment, but if we carry them too long, they begin to shape our identity. We start living not in reality, but in the safety of illusion. But here is the hidden gift. Once we recognize these lies, we gain the power to choose differently. The man who believed it was too late eventually realized the real story was fear. Once he named it, he could work with it. He began to take small steps toward change, not all at once, but enough to reclaim a sense of freedom. The courage to face the truth is rarely comfortable, but it is always liberating. Pause and ask yourself, if you stripped away the excuses, the rehearsed lines, the protective stories, what truth would you see underneath? And what would that truth ask you to do? One practical way to uncover the lies you tell yourself is to journal honestly. Write down a belief you hold about yourself, then ask, is this always true? Challenge it with evidence. For example, if you believe, "I'm not confident," recall moments when you did speak up, when you did act with courage. Lies often crumble when faced with the weight of real experience. Another way is to listen to your language. Words like always, never, or can't are often red flags. I'll never be able to do that. Things always go wrong for me. When you hear yourself say these absolutes, pause. Ask, is that a truth or a story I've been repeating? The lies we tell ourselves are like fog. They blur the path ahead, making us hesitate. But once we begin to question them, the fog lifts and possibilities appear. The truth may be scarier, but it is also clearer. It gives us something real to work with. As we close this chapter, remember this. The hidden mind is not only shaped by others, it is shaped by the stories you whisper to yourself each day. Some of those stories keep you safe. Some keep you small. The challenge is to notice which is which and to choose honesty over comfort when the time comes. So pause now and reflect. What is the biggest lie you've been telling yourself? And what truth, though uncomfortable, is waiting for you just beneath it? And if this chapter gave you something to think about, share your reflections in the comments, like this video, and subscribe for more. Because learning to face the lies we tell ourselves is another step in unlocking the hidden mind. Chapter 15. Unlocking Self-Awareness. There is a moment in life when we suddenly see ourselves more clearly than before. Maybe it happens during a conversation, or while journaling, or in the quiet of the night. In that moment, we realize something that had been hidden. A habit, a fear, a pattern we've repeated without knowing why. That moment is self-awareness, the mirror we hold, not just to our face, but to our entire inner world. I once spoke with a man who kept finding himself in the same type of relationship, over and over again. Each one began with excitement and passion, and each one ended with the same painful pattern. Arguments, distance, disappointment. He would blame his partners or sometimes fate, but never himself. Then one day, after a long silence following another breakup, he admitted, "Maybe it's me. Maybe I keep choosing the same kind of story because of something I don't want to see." That was the beginning of change. The moment he turned the mirror inward, he began to break the cycle. Think about this for a moment. How many of your struggles repeat because you haven't yet looked deeply enough inside? How many times have you blamed circumstances or other people when the real key was hidden in your own patterns? Self-awareness is not easy. Our brains are wired with blind spots, defense mechanisms that protect us from pain. We rationalize, we justify, we distract ourselves. It takes courage to face not only our strengths but our shadows. Yet without awareness, we walk in circles, repeating the same mistakes and calling them destiny. Pause here and reflect. When was the last time you surprised yourself by noticing a pattern you hadn't seen before? Maybe it was the way you reacted too quickly when criticized. Maybe it was how you avoided opportunities out of fear, even as you told yourself you were too busy. Each realization, however uncomfortable, is a doorway to growth. Psychologists describe self-awareness as the foundation of emotional intelligence. It's the ability to notice your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors, and how they ripple outward. When you are aware, you gain the power of choice. Instead of reacting automatically, you pause. Instead of being swept away by emotion, you can ask, why am I feeling this? What is this reaction really about? Awareness creates space, and in that space lies freedom. But awareness does not come automatically. It must be practiced. One simple tool is journaling. Writing down your thoughts and feelings each day helps you notice patterns you might miss in the moment. Another tool is feedback listening. Really listening, when people you trust reflect something about you even when it stings. And a third is mindfulness. Slowing down enough to notice the sensations in your body, the flow of your breath, the racing of your thoughts. I once worked with a woman who struggled with anger. She often snapped at her children and then felt guilty afterward. Through mindfulness, she began to notice the physical signs of anger before it erupted, the tightening in her chest, the heat in her face. That awareness gave her a choice, to pause, to breathe, to respond differently. Over time, her relationships changed, not because the anger disappeared, but because her awareness transformed her response. Pause and ask yourself, what signals does your body give you before you react? What habits or emotions could you catch earlier if you only slowed down to notice? Self-awareness is not about judgment. It is not about labeling yourself as good or bad. It is about honesty. It is about looking in the mirror and saying, this is me with all my strengths and flaws. From that place of honesty, real change becomes possible. Without it, we live in denial, endlessly repeating the same lessons. Here's a small experiment you can try. For one day, set an intention to watch yourself as if you were an observer. Notice how you enter a room, how you speak, how you respond when challenged. Don't try to fix anything, just observe. At the end of the day, write down what you saw. This gentle practice can reveal more than you expect. And remember, self-awareness is not a destination. It is a lifelong journey. The more we grow, the more layers we discover. Sometimes we uncover truths that are difficult. Sometimes we discover strengths we never knew we had. Either way, awareness expands our capacity to live with intention. As we close this chapter, consider this. The hidden mind is not only about understanding others, it is about understanding yourself. Without self-awareness, every tool, every insight, every lesson risks being applied blindly. With self-awareness, you begin to live more fully awake, more fully alive. So pause now and ask, what truth about yourself have you been avoiding? And what might happen if you dared to face it? And if this chapter gave you something to reflect on, share your thoughts in the comments, like this video, and subscribe for more. Because unlocking self-awareness is not just a step in the journey, it is the key that makes all the other steps possible. Chapter 16. The Mind of Tomorrow. Imagine a world where children are taught emotional intelligence as early as they learn to count. A world where classrooms don't just focus on math and science, but on empathy, self-awareness, and communication. Where workplaces value not only productivity, but also the emotional climate of their teams. Where conflicts are approached with curiosity instead of blame, and where understanding others is seen as a sign of strength rather than weakness. That world may feel far away, but it is closer than we think. It begins with us here and now, shaping the mind of tomorrow. I once met a young boy who had a remarkable ability. Whenever his classmates argued, he would step between them and ask, "How do you feel right now?" At first, the other children laughed at him, but soon they realized he had a gift. By naming emotions, he helped dissolve fights before they escalated. He hadn't learned this from a textbook. His parents had taught him to notice and express his feelings from a young age. What he practiced in a playground dispute was something many adults still struggle to do. He gave me hope that the next generation can learn what ours has often ignored, that the hidden mind is not something to fear, but something to embrace. Think about this for a moment. What would your life have been like if you had been taught as a child how to notice your emotions without judgment, how to listen deeply to others, how to recognize the unspoken signals of connection? How many mistakes could have been softened? How many relationships strengthened? How many conflicts resolved sooner? The mind of tomorrow depends on the choices we make today. It begins with cultivating awareness in ourselves, pausing to reflect, asking deeper questions, daring to unmask, daring to listen. Each step we take in our own growth creates ripples that reach others. A parent who learns to respond calmly instead of with anger teaches their child that emotions can be managed. A leader who listens instead of commands creates a culture of respect. A friend who speaks honestly opens the door for deeper intimacy. These are not small acts. They are the seeds of a different future. Pause here and ask yourself, what kind of echo do you want to leave for those who come after you? Will they inherit patterns of fear and silence or patterns of trust and understanding? The future will demand more of us than ever before. Technology connects us across the globe, but it cannot replace the depth of human connection. Artificial intelligence may solve complex problems, but it cannot replicate empathy. The faster the world becomes, the more vital it is to slow down, to look one another in the eye, and to remember the timeless truths of psychology and human behavior. I once spoke with an elderly woman who had lived through wars, economic shifts, and revolutions in technology. When I asked her what mattered most, she didn't hesitate. "Relationships," she said. "Everything else comes and goes, but the way we treat each other, that's what lasts." Her words have stayed with me. They are a reminder that no matter how advanced the world becomes, the hidden mind, our emotions, our connections, our unspoken truths, will always be at the heart of being human. The mind of tomorrow is not just about surviving, but about thriving. It is about creating spaces where people feel safe enough to be authentic, where diversity is not just tolerated but celebrated, where listening is as valued as speaking. It is about teaching children that strength is not the absence of vulnerability, but the courage to embrace it. It is about building a society where awareness and compassion guide our choices as much as ambition and logic do. Pause and reflect now. What role will you play in shaping that future? How can you bring more awareness, more kindness, more understanding into the circles you move in today? The mind of tomorrow is not built by governments alone, nor by grand speeches. It is built in kitchens, classrooms, boardrooms, and conversations like the ones you share with the people you love. As we close this journey, remember that unlocking the hidden mind is not about having all the answers. It is about asking better questions. It is about noticing what was once unseen, daring to face what was once avoided, and choosing to live with greater clarity and compassion. The chapters we have walked through together on connection, motivation, trust, power, self-awareness are not just ideas, they are tools, they are invitations. And now it is your turn. Your turn to notice the silent language. Your turn to question the stories you tell yourself. Your turn to choose which masks to wear and which to set aside. Your turn to echo emotions that uplift rather than weigh down. Your turn to decide how you will use the influence you already hold. The mind of tomorrow is waiting. It is written in every choice you make, every word you speak, every connection you honor. Step into it with courage. Step into it with awareness. Step into it with heart. And if this final chapter stirred something in you, share your reflections in the comments, like this video, and subscribe for more. Because together we are not only unlocking the hidden mind, we are shaping the future it creates. We have walked together through many doors of the hidden mind. We've explored the silent language of connection, the stories we tell without words, the roots of motivation, the fragile bridge of trust, the shadows of personality, and the countless ways our emotions, our groups, and our choices shape us. Along the way, we have paused, reflected, and discovered truths both about others and about ourselves. But now, as this journey comes to a close, I want to remind you of something important. All of this begins within. The hidden mind isn't just out there in the gestures of strangers or the dynamics of groups. It is alive inside you, whispering through your emotions, your habits, your stories, your dreams. Unlocking it is not a single moment of revelation, but a lifelong practice. I once asked an elderly mentor what he had learned after decades of studying human behavior. He smiled and said that people are always more than they seem, including ourselves, and that the greatest discovery is not about others, it's about meeting yourself with honesty. His words have never left me, because in the end, the journey of understanding people is really the journey of understanding yourself. Pause for a moment and reflect. What did you discover about yourself as you listened to these chapters? Was there a pattern you finally noticed? A mask you realized you've been wearing? A lie you recognized you've been telling yourself? And perhaps more importantly, what will you do with that discovery? Awareness is only the beginning. The real transformation happens when awareness turns into action. When you choose to pause before reacting, when you decide to speak honestly instead of hiding, when you offer trust or repair it, when you bring compassion into a place where judgment once ruled. Each small act is a step into a new way of living. The hidden mind is vast, but you don't need to master it all at once. Start small. Notice the tone of your voice in the next conversation. Pay attention to the emotions echoing in a room. Catch yourself in a story you've told too many times and ask if it's really true. These little shifts create ripples, and over time, ripples become waves. And don't forget, you are not walking this path alone. Every human being is learning, stumbling, trying, and growing. Extend the same grace to yourself that you long to give to others. Some days you will see clearly. Other days the fog will return. That is normal. What matters is not perfection, but persistence. As you step away from this book, carry with you the reminder that the hidden mind is not something to fear. It is not an enemy to conquer. It is a part of you to understand, to embrace, and to live with. The more you explore it, the more freedom you will find. Not because life becomes easier, but because you will walk through it with greater clarity and compassion. So pause one last time and ask yourself, what is the next step in your own journey within? And as you continue forward, remember this. Share your reflections in the comments, like this video, and subscribe for more. Because this isn't just the end of a book, it is the beginning of a deeper conversation. One that starts with you but doesn't end there. Thank you for walking this path with me. May you continue to unlock the hidden mind, both in others and, most importantly, in yourself.